Cool. Happy Friday, everybody. It's April 17th. Thanks for joining us for the Chorus Daily Briefing. And I'm here with Grayson Cooper, the head of sales at Rev.com. Grayson, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
We're excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, how are you holding up? Where is your shelter in place?
Austin, Texas. As you can see, I'm taking advantage of the work from home Friday with a hoodie today. So
the work at home Friday part, I was feeling like you might have done that for a while right now.
Yeah, actually I had shoulder surgery before this, so I feel like I was quarantining before it was cool, and that's not the best thing to be. So,
gotcha. Hey, Grace, before we jump in, we're going to talk to you about cold call connect rates and first meetings, discovery conversations. But you've just got a very global background, and I'm curious. I was looking at just the different initiatives you've been in and how you've been helping people. Tell me I'm curious after reading some of your blog posts, what drives you? What I want to tap into that a little bit before we jump right into the metric side here.
Yeah, there's two things that I really love. First thing that I love personally is problem solving. So any opportunity that I get to solve like a really complex problem just super excites me. And the more that I get to do that, the happier I am. And so just digging into really juicy, complex problems is really exciting to me. I have a background in economics and math, so I try to approach everything with like an analytical mind, and that probably comes out and may come out in this conversation. But so that's one thing. The other thing that really drives me, background in sports growing up, and really love building and fostering culture. So in high school basketball, everyone called me the glue guy because I was the emotional leader of the team. And funny name, but it was so fun to like drive and cultivate the like culture of the team. And so I'd be the guy that was like diving on the floor for the basketball, or like just trying to throw my body out there so that everyone else was carrying in that momentum. And I think as a sales leader, you get the opportunity to like drive and really encourage that growth and people to try new things. And I love that every day about my job, to where I can get to motivate and inspire people. And I think that's just wonderful. So.
Well, look, I was excited to chat with you today, just given that, and even just some of the philanthropy work that you've done. I saw both STEM as well as just helping different communities. And so using that empathy and that mindset, let's jump into the data. So, and by the way, tell me a little bit about the Rev.com sales team. What does your organization look like? How many folks, and just kind of how are they spread out?
We're about 20 people today. We have about a little over a quarter of that is BDRs, and then there's another quarter of that. I guess it's more like a third BDR, third account executives, and then we have a small enterprise team, and we have customer success as well. And this has been a big shift for us. So this is actually the first time we went remote and full remote, which has been a big change. And I think every company did that in some time in March, and you can definitely see that we can see that in our sales conversations, and we can also see that in a productivity dip on our own side while everyone's adjusting to that new normal, which has been a different.
Any surprises? I mean, for those that have not done this, what has surprised you, good or bad?
One thing that has surprised us at Rev, and been a nice surprise, is that Rev sells transcription closed captions. So you can think of, if you watch something on Netflix, it was likely done by us. The demand for that content has just exploded. So our captions product, which makes up a good portion of our revenue, but is a smaller portion, has just exploded. And that has been an exciting thing for us, but it's caused us to have to react to that quickly. So now we need to make sure we're selling that as effectively as possible and communicating exactly what customers' needs and really understanding that. So it's been a new focus and shift for the sales team.
Hey, Grayson, on that point, your team's all remote now, so they're not. You can't walk the halls, you can't feel it, you can't just get into it. How have you achieved that? How have you ramped people up quickly? And just any observations that maybe as other leaders are going through similar things that you'd want to share?
A big thing for us is making sure to get FaceTime, and I think often if you're a sales leader and you have middle management, there's a potential for you to like miss out on seeing what's happening at the individual contributor level. That needs to be fixed as soon as possible. So at least once or twice a week, I'm spending some portion of my day sitting on BDR and account executives or customer success calls. That way I'm interfacing with prospects, customers, longstanding relationships and making sure to hearing the pulse of what's really happening in our customer base. The other thing that's been really effective that the managers have done is have a daily stand-up. And in that daily stand-up, it can talk about the normal things like the pipeline or what you're going to do today or little coaching sessions. But also it's just a chance to like have that coffee conversation that's super crucial to having healthy relationships with your employees. So,
yeah, definitely. I'm curious if you've seen, we kicked off the week looking at just overall meeting productivity. Last week it dropped 11%. This week it held steady. And before we jump into the new stats, is this consistent with what you're seeing? You mentioned a little bit of a dip potentially when we kicked off the call.
Mm-hmm. We saw that dip pretty heavily it was like middle of March or the last 3/4 of March, where it was something like we had 50 meetings on the calendar for the week, and what actually showed up that week or what actually occurred that week because of people going to work remotely and saying like, I'm pushing this out. It could be push it out 2 weeks, or it could be pushing it out indefinitely because they're working from home and didn't have the equipment or the resource or the bandwidth even to take the meeting. And so we saw something like, of those 50 meetings, we saw actual shows at like 25. So it was like pretty drastic hit for us. And that was 1 week. And then over the past 2 weeks here, more in the April timeline, it's normalized quite a bit. And we're seeing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's really interesting because I think looking back at some of our previous stats around the media space, which has been down and hit a little bit harder than some of the other categories, it almost sounds like that segment wasn't as used to working from home or had to adjust a bit more than some of the other segments that maybe had more experience doing that.
Absolutely. And we also see that with, some of our segments that we did sell into, like market research, which is primarily done in person, right? Most one-on-one conversations are happening in person, and you record that and need a transcription or whatever. But media and entertainment has a huge demand now. And so we're seeing media and entertainment and education just, coming in same day, trying to get a contract in place. And that's obviously nice for the sales team, but a different buying process. And we're trying to make sure we're discovering, really meeting the customer's needs and closing business in like very small, short timeframes now, because they're under a lot of pressure.
Those are, it's interesting. These are the observations that we're just unlocking in these dialogues. Look, on this stat here, Grayson, we're looking specifically at the most recent update of our data on cold calls and connect rates. So overall, we saw cold calls drop. I think it was 42% drop as we were heading into March 3rd. It bounced back March 30th, which is great. And then we were down again a few percentage points April 6th. That said, connect rates have been fairly steady. We're down a little bit, but it's people are willing to talk. Other guests that I've had have all said that they're surprised that people are willing to talk. But talk to me a little bit about your outreach and the way that you're handling cold calls and just, new type of activity here. Are you seeing this type of pattern?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even whenever I'm talking to our BDR managers about how we're doing cold calling, he's telling me, now some of our BDRs are at homes with their kids and they just can't make as many dials. And so for them to find their new operating mechanism, dials went down for a couple of weeks for us, where we were just trying to figure out like, how do we work from home? How do we make sure that we're having the right types of conversations, reaching out to the right people? And that required us to like reconsider what the approach was and what our talk track should look like. So the cold call volume on our side went down for a number of reasons. And then, but we have seen the connect rates I think they dipped slightly for a little while, and now they've picked back up, because I think just like other companies needed to figure out how they were going to give their landline to their employees at home. So it just took a second, but now the connect rates come back.
I think that's right. I'm also curious about, this is why I asked you when we opened it up about just your style being unique, that right now when I look at the data, we're also seeing people probably put a bit more heart into these calls. You're really targeting people that that you can help. Therefore, the connect rates are probably maintaining what we've seen. Any change in your kind of messaging and approach as you think about helping people?
I think you're right. You got to lead with the heart, and you got to lead with a lot of empathy and understanding. So anytime you make a cold call, you're rolling dice, and there's a gamble where they might tell you to, buzz off and be upset with you. But in this time, especially, people are man, there's a lot more stress. Like I feel it, and I think we all feel the fatigue a little bit, where there's just so much unknowns in our lives, whether it's at the job, whether it's with the economy, whether it's with our family, and that's a lot of pressure. And so on our conversations, especially on the cold calls, I think you got to approach that with like genuine questions and being extremely authentic of, you know, how are you, and understanding it. Is this something that you need? And if not, being able to understand that it's not a good fit for them right now. And really, but you got to lead with the heart, like you said.
Hey, Grayson, so for other sales leaders out there that are trying to motivate their BDR teams and their frontline sales teams to, you know, continue to reach out to help get these volumes back up, or at least, you know, meetings up, you know, any advice? I mean, how do you motivate people? As you mentioned, we're home, we have kids, and this is a different environment. Any tactics or approaches you've used that feel authentic today versus the old approaches we might have used to kind of boost productivity?
With any time that there's a lot of change, there is an opportunity for people to take advantage of that change. Change is normally good for businesses that are really innovative. And so one important thing that we've done on the sales team is just every day there was a period when we went home, we were all meeting as an entire sales team talking about what's working, who are the customers that are buying, what do they look like, why are they buying, and really getting a tight feedback loop so that we can understand how do we talk to them, what's working in the conversations, what's working to, you know, for us to go sell to, how do we find more of those people. And I think you have to approach it in the mindset of, this is the offense that I'm going to play right now, and I'm going to attack the market where I think there's opportunity, and run that as an experiment. And then, you know, if it yields the right results, then you implement more and allow the team to be creative in their experimentation. So like give a little bandwidth for some BDRs, or maybe the whole team, to like try different tactics, because the more experimentation that you're doing, the more you can bubble up the right things that are working for the entire team. So that's been crucial. I like to think about it in this offense defense pattern. So in the defense perspective, you know, we're going to think about things like, we're going to do a deep analysis of like, what's working for the team? Where should we invest our money? Are there any tools that are like, you know, considerably worth cutting? If there are, maybe we play defense there. But then there's this whole section of offense, and the team's got to be focused on offense. Operations, they focus on defense, right? And so you got to get that team in that offense mentality of, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to be successful. It's an opportunity for us to potentially capture a lot of market. And then getting everyone in the team together and behind that vision is really crucial. So
I love the experiments. Now, by the way, I understand why they called you glue back in the heyday on the sports field. But look, I think that the experiments is fantastic. I think that's a great time for us to be trying new things and seeing what works and exporting that out. As we look at the creation of new opportunities, and you mentioned some of these are coming in, you know, quicker now. As a collective group, we saw this dip for the last 3 weeks. We finally turned around. So very, you know, small variants, but this is important. These are the true first meetings and the percentage of meetings that we're having. We're seeing a bit more outbound. I think it's because we saw a dip in meetings, a dip in cold, and, you know, at the start of a quarter, it's time that we get, you know, back into building, you know, more efforts on building pipeline up. So 31.12 is where we came in for the week. In terms of first meetings and just the percentage of your time on that, is that consistent with what you're seeing? Any thoughts on this area?
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it took a second for us to figure out what were the people that we should be reaching out to, and how do we approach them in a way that is relatable to them and they understand. And us retargeting and shifting our focus took some time, but once the buyers right now that are buying products, they're buying them as fast as they can because they need it in some way. And you see that like urgency shift, and you see people who are looking at budgets in their time and trying to make sure they allocate resources in the right way right now. So there's a lot of buying pressure that people are experiencing. So if you know where that is in your market, then you can go shift your focus there. And I think it just took, for us at Rev, it took us a little time to figure out exactly what that was for us. And once we targeted it, though, we saw those numbers return to normals, and in some ways actually improve, right? Because just that pressure that those prospects are having.
Makes sense. I think, you know, the piece that you've been hitting on is around the discovery side. So we've been looking at discovery calls for, you know, several weeks now, and it's you know, two things. Discovery for this year, 2020, has been down. Even pre-COVID-19, we just saw a trend where, you know, discovery calls were down about 7.5%. But over the last few weeks, it's really been down significantly. it started to recover. So now we're only down 25% year over year, versus the 31 and 30 we've previously seen. But what I'm hearing from you, Grace, is that your calls are coming in with an urgency. How is that changing your discovery process? How is that changing the quality of these meetings?
Yeah, well, so two things there. One, at the macro level, I think that sales as an industry is figuring out how to do discovery in a new way. So if you're like Revit, people are getting more effective at getting in front of prospects, which means us getting more of their time is quite challenging at times. And so really being able to get to the point of having a discovery call is challenging as a whole, is more challenging as a whole for our entire industry. And that may be reasons why we're seeing the headwinds with getting in front of the right people and being able to host a discovery call. So that's at the macro level. But at the micro level, for us, it's like, especially right now, we could be doing discovery conversations and buying conversations in the same conversation. So what may look like a discovery call may be significantly different now than it was 60 days ago. And so that's been challenging for us to make sure we're really understanding the urgency for those customers and really focusing on their urgency and aligning that with, hopefully aligning that with our industry, our urgency.
Yeah, look, I think that makes sense, especially if you've got this inbound and people moving a bit quicker on that. Any other advice for sales leaders out there as we're all kind of grappling different aspects of our emotions right now?
I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot is making sure to lead with heart. And I think we can't underemphasize the importance of leading with heart with your own team. So like knowing and allowing people to feel those emotions on your team without mandating that they need to keep moving forward or keep making a number of calls, especially if they're having a hard day. I think giving people the room to feel like it's okay to fail, in the sense of trying things out, but also in the sense of at work, maybe they just can't be there the whole day and they need an hour to go on a walk. Like giving them that wiggle room is really important to making sure that they feel safe and comfortable in their jobs, because anyone who's backed up against a wall or feels like they're in a corner just won't be performing at the level of expectations that we probably have of them, but also how do we bring out the best in oneself? So that would be my advice. So
I think the authenticity is important. I think one last observation I have on this slide, when you think about discovery, I feel like in the industry, it's been trained so heavy around certain type of discovery questions. And, it's very methodical, but those questions make no sense in the last few weeks. And I'll listen to calls and I'll even hear our team replay calls to other clients saying, look, this is what we did before. And it doesn't make sense to ask about how many reps are hitting quota or the ways that we would do things. And so the ability to be authentic on discovery, the ability for reps to experiment, as you mentioned, I think is critical. Maybe that's why we're seeing an uptick, is that people are coaching a new type of discovery that's relevant today versus what would come off as essentially scripted of the past. Are you doing a lot of additional coaching, by the way? You said you have your morning huddles. Is that where you do the coaching with your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us as a team, our total volume of pipeline that we're generating has gone down. So it's imperative that every opportunity that we do have, we are maximizing the value. And I think that puts, with anything, there's two options: do more, do better. And we're really focusing on the do better right now because we're not sure how doing more will work for us, or if we'll have the same level of volume indefinitely. So really focusing on the coaching level.
Nice. One last thing I want to kick off here before we close up is just a quick poll. So I launched a quick poll. If everybody can see this, and just, are you still taking as many first calls with prospective customers as you were a month ago? So we have some answers coming in. Yeah, yes, just as many. No, we have different priorities. So let's see, we've got a few live answers coming in. Right now, it looks like we're pretty evenly split between yes and no. Let's see if a few extra answers come in here. Yeah, I mean, look, we're basically, we're split, 45, 55 or so. All right, now we're starting to shoot up. So 67% say yes, just as many. So good. So look, once again, we're proving that the community is out there engaging. There's a different set of needs. People are moving quicker. And with that, Grayson, I just wanted to say thanks for kicking off Friday. It's a lot of fun to be able to do this and meet great people, and your insights are fantastic. And I'm hoping many will listen to this and learn from you.
Yeah, happy to help. Thank you so much for your time, Jim.
All right, appreciate it. Cheers.